welcome to Into the Wormhole with Larissa and Lauren. I'm Larissa Maestro, and I'm here with my number one,
Lauren Lowen. Hello.
Hello. So we have a special treat for you guys this week. So we were invited to be on a podcast that we're both really big fans of. This podcast is also a Nashville podcast, which is really cool. And it's called Your Inner Child is an Idiot. It's hosted by our friends DJ Phillips and Damon Xanthopoulos. And it's a super fun podcast where they just rewatch and re-experience things from millennial childhood era and decide whether they were any good.
Yeah, I am a huge fan of this podcast. Damon and DJ have been doing this, I think, for 5 years. But yeah. I only recently discovered it. It's something that's been recommended probably by you, Larissa, to me several times.
Yeah.
And I finally was in a situation where I was like, oh, yeah, I should listen to that podcast. And I've just been gobbling it up. I think in a matter of like a few months, I totally absorbed 5 years worth of this podcast. I was just binging it. I strongly recommend, let's see, my first episode was the Wayne's World episode, which was fun. The Batman Forever one sticks out, but yeah, it's really great, especially if you have memories of some of the things they talk about too. I also like the fact that Damon and DJ, Larissa and Lauren, also one is a musician and one is an illustrator cartoonist, so that's another weird way we kind of have like an alternate universe version of us.
Yeah.
It's appropriate. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. It's appropriate that we do a podcast with them.
Yes, it's balanced.
Yes.
We can cover all the bases. We've got the theme song covered. We got the artwork covered. We're good.
Oh, and Damon's artwork for this crossover is amazing. You should check it out on their Instagram just for that.
Yes, it is so much fun. They had a lot of their fans requesting that they review Star Trek: The Next Generation, which is a like hefty task. So they decided to invite us on to be their resident experts on the franchise. So it was an honor. It was an honor and privilege.
No pressure at all. So yeah. So I guess all we can say is that's what you'll be listening to, and we hope you really enjoy it.
Because we really did.
Da, 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 da. Is it? Right? I slip into the 60s version and then I click back into the 90s version. Now that, oh yeah. Welcome to Your Inner Child is an Idiot. This is the podcast where we look back on things from your childhood and see if they were any good. My name's DJ.
My name's Damon.
And we have two very, very special guests today. This is unprecedented in the world of our podcast. We have Lauren and Larissa from Into the Wormhole. Welcome, you guys.
Yay!
Hello. Thank you for being here.
I'm so excited.
Very special episode.
Yes. Crossover episode, like the Jetsons meeting the Flintstones.
It's going to be so weird. Because why? Why would that happen?
We're the Jetsons.
Yeah, well, obviously you would be the Jetsons.
So, why are these two lovely women here? Well, that's because we're going to be talking about Star Trek: The Next Generation, and we thought we'd consult experts,
like we usually do,
like we usually have never done before. So Into the Wormhole is a lovely podcast, an excellent podcast about Star Trek. Well, you guys talk about all the Star Trek, right?
Not we talk about all of it.
Yeah.
But, so, I mean, for both of us, though, TNG is our Trek.
What is the one that was on when we were younger?
Yeah.
I mean, it's ours.
It's ours, yes.
It belongs to our generation.
It belongs to millennials.
What we usually do, you guys are familiar with the podcast at this point, is just talk about what we remember. And I have not seen a Star Trek: The Next Generation in probably 15 to 20 years.
I literally just finished watching one like 20 minutes ago.
Yeah, so
the 20 years, 20 minutes.
The memory thing is going to be a little bit different for you guys, but
Let's start with old Damon here. What you got?
Yeah. Well, I have no memories of ever watching Star Trek: The Next Generation, but I do remember my brother making it appointment television, at least the first episode, which I found weird because I don't remember him ever really being into Star Trek prior to that. But he made a point to watch the premiere episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation when was it 1989 that it premiered?
87.
Okay. Looking back, piecing things together like a detective, I think my brother may have had a crush on Wesley Crusher.
I mean, we all did.
Right. Well, it only seems obvious now, but I was like, why is he watching this show from like a franchise he's never been interested in? And I was like, oh, there's this teenage boy who's around his age on the show, who's
tiny boy
symmetrical
with
and
sweaters.
facial features.
Wesley Crusher is the one with the deep plunging V neckline, right?
He has so many excellent sweater unitards on this show. Which honestly, I mean, and I've said this before and I stand by it, I would wear most of his outfits in my actual life.
I mean, it sort of circled back on itself, like the fashion of Wesley Crusher. When I see pictures of him, he just looks like some guy I would see in like Williamsburg. He just looks like some guy.
It's true.
But yeah, I think I'm more familiar with the original recipe Star Trek. I watched all those movies. My brother and I got really into Star Trek 6 when Praxis explodes, destroying the Klingon Empire. And it also had Iman in it, which was probably our gay gateway into Star Trek. I'm like, oh, look, David Bowie's wife is here. Let's hang out with her for a while. But I mean, other than that, I did watch in retrospect. When I lived with you, DJ, we watched the original first 5 original cast movies.
You had a blog of sorts.
Yeah, I went through them because I was curious about why Star Trek, because I never got into it as like it was in my nerd blind spots. So I never got into it, but I watched the first 5 Kirk crew movies, which are off and on. They're a little bit uneven as a series.
It's the even-numbered ones that are the good ones.
Yeah, it's the opposite of the Indiana Jones rule, where the odd-numbered ones are good.
Yes.
Star Trek, the even-numbered ones are good.
Although
which is weird, because the 4th one has whales and time travel in it, but still manages to eke out a good movie out of that.
Yeah, it's still fun, that one. I just saw that.
Larissa and Lauren, did you all like watch this a lot growing up? Was it like a thing?
It's interesting because so I was born 84. So I kind of remember when I started to get into Next Generation, I was about 8 or 9. And by that time, Star Trek was starting to wrap up the Next Generation. But obviously, a lot of things were in syndication. I want to say it came on shortly after my brother and I got home from school. It was one of those things.
Yeah, I remember stumbling upon it a lot.
Yeah. And so my brother and I watched it, but it's funny thinking back to what I watched. I didn't watch a lot of live action stuff. I saw Simpsons and other cartoons, but the only other thing besides Next Generation that I watched that much live action was Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, which I hope you guys do, by the way.
Similar.
Yeah. No, but no, I just really liked, honestly, I just really like the characters. I do not consider myself to be a big sci-fi person. I just really liked this ensemble cast.
Yeah.
And that's what it was for me. And then it kind of parlayed into, other things later on in my life with Star Trek.
So you stuck with Star Trek going forward?
A little bit. Like when Deep Space Nine came on, which I don't know how familiar you guys are with the other, shows, but Deep Space Nine did not click with me as a 10, 11, 12-year-old. And I saw that later in my 20s. And then I was like, oh, I get it. I get it now.
Yeah, DS9's for adults.
Star Trek After Dark.
No, Deep Space Nine was like a full story arc. I remember it being very dark. And I remember asking my brother, by dark, I mean literally, it was just the colors were so, it just looked different, Yeah. And I remember asking my brother, what's this one about? And he's like, oh, they're on a space station. And I was like, oh, that doesn't sound nearly as interesting as TNG, where you're zipping around on a ship. I really wanted Data to be my best friend. There's so many episodes of Data befriending little kids, and I think I was one of those.
Oh,
that's adorable.
Yeah,
That's
but it was just these great little 45-minute stories. It didn't matter what order you watched them in, and I had a good time. I don't know, Larissa, like what's your tie to it all?
My parents were Trekkies, are Trekkies.
Generational.
And
Awesome.
yes, so I watched TNG with my family from the time it first came on TV. They loved TOS, they loved all the movies, and then, the rest is history.
Are they still like super into it? Like,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll like call
Discovery,
them
isn't
and
that the other one?
I'll hear Voyager theme song in the background. Like they love it. They watched all of Picard. They loved it. My parents are scientists. They like science fiction. It made complete sense. We were a sci-fi family. Like we watched Quantum Leap too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did get into Quantum Leap as a kid.
It's great. And then, you know what? If you want another crossover, Scott Bakula, again, Enterprise captain. Not the best Star Trek.
I remember someone in college, because I think that one came out when I was in college, and I remember a friend of mine was trying to sell me on it by telling me there was like an AIDS storyline in that one where there was like a disease. Yeah, it wasn't her best moment of allyship.
You might like this.
Yeah.
AIDS.
Jesus Christ.
But it was
When
like some
is
alien
AIDS
race
ever
was dying. Some alien race was dying from a specific disease, and I guess Federation was not going to help them, and then they decided to help them or something. To that effect.
Lauren, we
AIDS.
talked about that episode when we talked about Phlox.
That's what I think you were saying. There's probably something else.
It's the one where he's like, where there's that one culture on the planet, and there's the other one, and they have the genetic defect, and it's the whole like beginning.
Genetic defect,
right? Isn't that relevant to your interest?
You'll love.
I am defective.
But Larissa, that's actually somewhat similar to my connection with it. Like, my dad will watch it, so like I was familiar with Star Trek, I'm sure in general, but like he fairly religiously, as religiously as he watching it, he's not like just a big super fan of anything. Not meaning he doesn't like it. He's just like TV is on. This is what I watch.
Yeah,
and so like that's where I remember is like I try to like
my
it even
favorite
more
show
'cause I thought
on
he
TV is on.
Exactly. TV is on and I'm tired and I'm gonna sit here, so it's fine.
Yeah.
And so I remember like bits and pieces just from like watching it with him, and then of course like the most I ever watched Star Trek after that was with Damon watching the movies, and so we didn't get that far. We didn't get into the TNG or the TNG movies.
Now, DJ, your wife, your Lauren,
yes.
She's a fan, right? She's a big fan.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't call her a Trekkie, but she does like it, and was like demanding coverage of certain episodes. So we'll have to get into that.
So she had specific episodes that she
I don't know if
wanted
they
you
were-
to watch.
I'm gonna go ahead and message her right now so I don't miss it. But
We have a very elaborate Google Doc that
Oh my
goes
gosh.
into like, okay, these are the ones we should consider because of this reason. But if we do this episode, then we really don't need to do this episode because we want to blah, 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 blah.
'cause that's
Yeah.
already covered.
So
You guys do a lot more work
Okay.
than we do.
Yeah.
So you guys, by the way, you guys tasked us with just picking too good and too bad. And we actually did something a little different, if it's okay.
Sure. Of course.
We did
So you
too
follow the
good.
tasks.
We didn't pick any. Fuck you.
You're watching everything. No. We did
We're gonna
too
watch
good.
the whole thing.
Too good. We're going to pick one that is kind of universally accepted as bad because we realized that I think a lot of people would agree that like Star Trek, when it's at its best, are these little 45-minute morality plays. And
Yes.
they're usually a more serious tone. They can be more talky or more actiony. But we realized there's like a different flavor of Star Trek we really needed to get in there. So we took one of the bad episodes and we made it our kind of like wild card. And it is a Q episode because he is so tied to TNG. And it's just what I would call like Star Trek shenanigans. And these episodes aren't necessarily good or bad, but they're more subjective to the viewer. For instance, the one episode of Q that we picked, I like it, but my husband Keith it's not his thing. He thinks it's stupid. So I'll be really curious to see what we all think of it. Larissa, do you have him or?
I do. I have them. They're in the doc now. I just did it real quick. Can I say what they are?
Oh yes, by all
Yes.
means.
Oh yeah, please.
Okay. So the silly episode that Lauren just mentioned is an episode called Qpid.
Oh god.
Nice.
A lot of puns.
All of the Q episodes, the titles are puns.
Yeah.
And it's season 4, episode 20. It is a holodeck episode, kind of. So we have, in a way, so
That
we
was
have.
one of Lauren's demands is a holodeck malfunction because she's like, they should
Yeah,
have got rid of
it's-
this thing a long time ago.
Right. It's not a true holodeck episode, but it's
True.
in the vein of the goofiness of the holodeck.
Yeah,
Okay.
everyone's in
Episodes. Yeah.
costumes.
Yes.
It's silly. The whole crew is in a situation that they're not used to.
Wait a minute. What is the holodeck?
Oh.
You're like the audience cipher. Perfect.
You're just saying syllables.
I only
It's
know
so
because
sad.
Lauren has talked about it. So
Right.
please, will you explain to poor Damon?
I
Poor
would
stupid
love to
Damon.
explain. So you're stuck on a starship
Sure.
for all the time, right? And you just have to be in this ship. The holodeck is like it's like a VR room
Yeah.
Oh,
where you
okay.
can go in and make it whatever you want. You can go on vacation to the beach. You can, be in a
Play basketball. Like,
Oh, no.
and make it anything you want to be.
There's no basketball
Missed
on Star
opportunity.
Trek, but
There
there
is
is
baseball.
baseball.
Oh no.
Larry Bird, what are you doing here?
Pretty much.
I'm like, can I just watch the Chicago Bulls documentary, but in the holodeck?
Yeah.
And just like watch Jordan dunk over and over and over again.
Can really
Um,
smell the. Never.
When you're in
No.
holodeck, are you in your own little pod or is everyone together?
There are 4 holodecks on the Enterprise.
Thank you.
Oh.
Yeah. So you can be in your own thing. You sign the holodeck out, you sign out time, and you go in and do your thing.
Do what?
Like a little conference
yeah.
room.
Yeah, it's like signing out a conference room. Only you might be
Spending some
experiencing
alone time.
some
In the wild,
porn.
wild west. Or,
Virtual pleasure palace. It's
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or like, pretending to be Sherlock Holmes, which is another thing that happens.
Oh my god.
great.
Yep.
Things that people do.
Oh yeah. The bad episode
Yep.
is
So that was our silly episode. The
that's the
holodeck
silly episode.
shenanigans.
Yeah, the shenanigans episode. Everyone's in fun costumes. There's
we don't want to give away too much.
I'm not going to say anything because there are memes that have come out of this episode that are very fun. The second episode, the bad episode, is called Justice, and it is from the first season of TNG, which is generally the worst season of TNG. Almost the whole season is terrible.
I think I've heard about that. See, because wasn't that what like Gene Roddenberry had very specific ideas of what this show was going to be like, and one of the things was like, and there should be no conflict, and the writers were like, that's the basic staple of drama, so we can't just not have conflict.
Oh yeah,
on
yeah,
the
yeah.
show.
That was a thing that continued throughout. It was
Yes.
He was like, children wouldn't be sad that their parents died, and the writers are like, but they would.
But they would. That's one of the things about kids. It's one of the few predictable
About
actually,
things.
kids. They're fragile like that.
Kids
this-
cry about the darndest things.
I know they're just crying all the time. This episode, I'm excited to hear what y'all think about the costume design specifically.
Ooh.
It is, oh god, I'm so excited.
Was just this their standard costumes for the first season, or was
No,
there like
this is
wacky
special.
costumes?
This
oh
is
god,
special.
okay.
You'll find out. And it's got a lot of Wesley. I would
yeah.
say.
It's
Yeah.
a Wesley episode also.
Wesley.
It is really terrible, but it's also not the worst episode. So
Yeah.
like specifically every Trek fan, TNG fan specifically, knows that the season 1 episode Code of Honor is the worst episode of Star Trek ever, and we're not going to make you watch that because it's just so horrible.
Leave us
Like,
some
it's-
wiggle room on that one.
Like the cast was like, this is bad when they were shooting it. And then Gates McFadden, who plays Dr. Crusher, went to the studio and was like, you shouldn't release this. It's bad. And then they fired her.
Whoa.
Wait,
I think it's okay to go in a little bit about it because, yeah, you said you've gotten a lot of requests from your fans about TNG, and so those people will know Code of Honor. But just to give you guys the background, it's considered a largely offensive and racist episode.
Oh.
But once you get past that, it's just a boring
Once
episode
you get past
to talk
the
about.
racism.
Not that, but once you talk about that,
Yeah.
like it's a pretty slow, boring episode, and we know it's bad. We want to recognize it as like an honorable mention for the badness category, but we just thought Justice would have a lot more. We'd have a lot more fun making fun of it. Yeah.
Gotcha.
But Gates McFadden, first off, that's a fantastic name of
Right?
like a private eye or something. But isn't she, I mean, is that the red-haired woman?
Yes.
So, I mean, she comes back. They fired her, but I mean, she remains, doesn't she?
Yeah.
She came back.
She came
okay.
back. Patrick Stewart specifically was like, you're hiring her back. And
What
they
a
were like,
godsend
oh,
that man is.
okay. Right. He's amazing.
And you're going to see her replacement in one of the other episodes, actually,
Yes.
because it's
They-
season 2.
Oh.
Yeah. Season 2 has no Dr. Crusher. It has Dr. Pulaski instead. And we have one episode. It's one of the best episodes of Star Trek that we've included on this list. So the two best episodes that we picked are like there are a lot of episodes that people are like, this is the best episode of Trek. This is the best episode of Trek. And these two are ones that Lauren and I specifically are like, we love these and these are important to us. But they're also considered to be some of the best episodes of TNG or Star Trek in general. And the first one is called Measure of a Man. It's season 2, and this is a Data episode. So this is like the episode where Data's like, actually, should I even not say it? Should I just not tell anything about it? I just want you to watch it.
Yeah,
Yeah, just let us go in.
All right.
All I need
Yeah,
to know is
that's
Data.
fair.
All you need to
It's
know is
about
it's Data.
And it's season 2, so it's very early on. It's like skinny little beautiful Patrick Stewart.
Before he got what? Like
Before he got so enormous and
When he's-
hairy.
It's because he's still wearing the like onesie uniform and not
Oh.
the two-piece uniform. So like it's still like very form-fitting.
he's
Oh, my.
streamlined.
Streamlined, yes. Yes. Cool.
He didn't have to wear the
gorgeous.
Shatner girdle.
No, oh God, no. You know that, like, I mean, everyone had to wear something to tuck stuff in.
Oh,
those
yeah.
uniforms.
Oh,
Those
yeah.
are not forgiving costumes at all. And then the next one is a 2-parter episode, which we cleared with you guys.
That's
It was approved. It was approved.
Thank
we will
you.
watch more. For you, we'll watch more TV.
Yeah. Oh, you're so kind. And it's called The Best of Both Worlds. And this is like just some excellent action shit and beautiful storytelling and just Patrick Stewart just nailing it. And like
I think
Whoopi
you might have a crush
Goldberg.
on Patrick Stewart.
Your face says I'm
do.
overwhelmingly attracted to Patrick Stewart. Is what I'm getting out of it.
I mean, when I first started watching Star Trek, I was like, he's my dad. And then when I was like, you know, a young adult, I was like, is he hot?
I don't
I was-
know.
I was like, is he my grandpa? Like I saw him and thought he must be way older. And then yeah, it's like now some of the cast is younger than what I am now when they started
Yeah.
the show.
I mean,
He's
you're
got-
right. I thought when I first watched TNG that Patrick Stewart is his current age now.
No,
Right?
yes, I
Like
I'm amazed by how, because that throws me off. I think when I was a kid, I was thrown off by Steve Martin, Patrick Stewart, anyone who had gray hair. I was just
Or
like,
no
oh, they're
hair.
all like 70. Got it.
Yeah.
And then they just remained 70 as I grew up.
y'all should check out if you can. I mean, I'm sure it's easy to find. They did a screen test when he was first cast on TNG, and they gave him a hairpiece.
Oh no.
And the photo of him, first of all, it's like hilarious just to see Patrick Stewart with like a silly hairpiece on, but the face he's making in the picture is, he's like, why?
It's like putting
Why?
a coat on a cat.
I know. He's like, get it.
Just starts batting at it. Was it a
Get it
full wig or was it just like a top, like a toupee?
It was like a
thing?
toupee. It was like a
Oh.
top piece with like, it was just, and it was like,
He
kind of-
deserves better than that.
No,
Yeah,
no, it was
that's-
dumb. It was very sweet though, because eventually, when people asked Gene Roddenberry like, why is he bald? Gene was like, because nobody would care in the future.
In the future.
And also, no one cries about their dead parents, and no one would care about bald people. And there would be no conflict whatsoever.
No conflict at all, and that's why this is a great show. It's very relaxing.
Yeah. It's like playing Animal Crossing.
But in space.
But in
with
space.
Patrick Stewart.
So before we watch, I remember a Q episode where there's something with Captain Picard's fake heart. Is that?
Oh, that is
yeah.
not this one.
That's not.
Do you
this
know
one.
what? Do you know what that one is? I want to watch that one. We
His
don't have.
fake heart.
What's that?
I believe it's Tapestry season.
Yeah,
7.
it's Tapestry. Mm-hmm.
Oh, ready to go.
Yeah.
He has a fake heart already. Now I have so many questions.
Yes.
Right?
He has a fake heart. Yes.
Because in the future we'd be bald and we would have fake hearts.
Because why not? No, he has an accident when he's a cadet, and he has to have his heart replaced.
So I have Lauren's requests have come in. Update.
Oh,
Update from inside the house. The requests are coming from inside.
get out.
She said, ship in a bottle,
Oh,
fistful of datas,
that was on our list.
the inner light.
Also on
that
our
was
list.
on our list too.
Yeah.
And I actually did have Fistful of Datas for a while there for the silly one. Oh yes, Ship in the Bottle is one of my favorite episodes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It's,
I might just have to, Damon, you're under no obligation to watch all these, but I might have to watch those.
Those
Yeah,
three as well.
Inner Light won a Hugo Award, I think, and a Peabody. It is a Peabody. It is generally considered to be the best episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation. It is,
But didn't make your cut. Not good enough for you two.
You guys have limited time.
We wanted to, honestly, let's see. Let me just look. How many episodes do we have on this list? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. We had 18 episodes that we were trying to
break down,
whittle down.
And then we have to consider balancing it with Measure of a Man is a very talky court scene one, and then Best of Both Worlds is very actiony. I actually picked another episode called I, Borg, which is probably my favorite. But we decided we couldn't have 2 Borg episodes.
Yeah.
And so it's
and
hard.
I,
It's
Borg
hard.
might not make sense if you haven't seen Best of Both Worlds. It's not gonna hit as hard if you don't see that way, if you don't have the backstory, the intense backstory. Inner Light is one that you can kind of watch by itself.
Okay.
And I absolutely would recommend definitely watching it if you want to, because it's beautiful.
Well,
and the music in it is also beautiful. So if you do want to watch them in series order, then the worst episode would be first, which I think is great.
Let's do it. What's the quick rundown? Just let's name the episodes once again so our audience knows what they need to catch up on if they were so inclined.
So we're going for the season 1 episode 8. It's called Justice. This is our bad pick. Season 2, episode 9, Measure of a Man. This is our good pick. Then season 3, episode 26, and season 4, episode 1, Best of Both Worlds. This is good pick. And then dumb pick is season 4, episode 20, Qpid.
All right. Qpid.
Yep.
Well, you have all those Q puns just hanging out there. I'm sure they were just like, well, we got to take all these. And this was also before anyone would know the titles of these shows. Like it was before, there was any means to know any of these.
Yeah. But there's Q Who, there's Hide and Q, there's
Please.
Hide and Q, that's not even a
it's not even a
thing.
no, it's not. It's not.
I just accepted it at first and I was like, wait, that's not a thing.
Nope.
Unacceptable. Well, I'm excited.
Who's writing these?
Well, okay, so we're gonna watch some episodes of Star Trek: The Next Generation. It's on Netflix, right?
It's on
Yeah, I think
Netflix. All
Great.
of Star Trek is on Netflix. You can watch
All of it, just all of it.
all of it. Well, except
Oh,
for
wow.
the new stuff that's on CBS All Access. But like all of the
Discovery.
the original series, the animated series, Next Generation,
Animated
DS9,
series?
Voyager,
Oh, yeah.
and Enterprise are all on Netflix. And I think most of the movies are on Netflix too.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know there was
think
an
so.
animated series.
I just actually, it's
Yeah.
funny. All the original cast movies, I think I couldn't find them on Netflix. I think I had to go to Amazon
maybe they're
Prime,
Amazon. Maybe they're on Amazon. Yeah.
at least for now.
Yeah.
Well, you can figure it out.
You
We're
can
gonna watch
figure it
those.
out.
Sorry,
It's
guys.
everywhere. It's everywhere.
You're familiar with the internet, no?
You're listening to a podcast, for Christ's sake.
You'll figure it out. Okay, so watch along with us. We'll be back after this.
All right. Warp 9.
Before we get into the episode proper, we have to do we love to do a little commercial for our Patreon page. Damon loves it more than anyone, and we're really good at it.
That's why I'm usually silent during it on the episodes.
We're lucky enough, I'd say hashtag blessed enough, to have a patron of our show on the show.
Yes.
Larissa, do you want to speak to your experience as
Yeah, give us your
patron of the
testimony.
show? Like, what's it like for you getting all this bonus material?
And her name read aloud to her.
Yeah.
You ever heard your name before? Every 2 weeks you can hear your name.
Larissa has chosen to have her actual name read. You can pick whenever you want. Well, you're not. That's the downside of being an early adopter is we don't know what we're doing, and you don't either. Patreon.com/YourInnerChild'sAnIdiot. We'll be your friend. Hey, listen, we are back, and we watched Star Trek: The Next Generation, and boy, did we watch it. Go, Larissa.
Yes.
Larissa, if you please, will you play us in, please? Starting at the intro, I appreciate that. Nice. A final frontier.
Are we joining in?
Sure.
You're having to keep up with her lungs.
I'm just going by my own tempo because
Now we realize why no one can do Zoom concerts.
It's why no one sings that song at karaoke either.
yeah. I always do.
It's a shame they cut out the rap bridge is missing from most episodes. That's a shame.
This is what Jerry Goldsmith is known for, his rap bridges.
Ladies and gentlemen, Vanilla Ice for some reason. It was a different time.
Before we get into the episode summaries, Deej, if I
Yes.
can commandeer, I have some questions.
I have some general questions too that I did not look up.
I didn't want to look up because I thought, well, two reasons.
boy.
Got
It would be
experts.
better to talk to the experts, and two, to somewhat get revenge every time I sit down to watch Lord of the Rings and someone's like, wait, what's a Maiar spirit again? So I thought I would ask you guys all my questions I collected over the course of
I have some too. This is great.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know there would be a pop quiz.
Oh, yeah. I think these are all very simple questions. but
Okay.
So don't panic.
Lauren, I don't think you should worry about whether you're going to know the answers to these questions.
They're mostly they're mostly structured with what's blank's deal. And that's it.
Oh, we know all of those answers.
Yeah, I figured you would.
Yeah.
So what's Troy's deal? Deanna Troy's deal?
Mm.
Ooh,
Okay,
And I
Larissa.
thought she was a human being, but then I got the feeling that she was not a human being.
She's half human,
Ooh.
half betazoid.
Okay.
Sorry.
The
Xanthoid
betazoid, the betazoid people can they have telepathy. They can speak to each other in their brains, and
Of
they can
course.
read people's minds. But because she's only half, she's empathic, so she can sense emotions and feelings from people.
Yeah, because we
Okay.
actually just talked about this on a previous episode. It's interesting that she's sort of half Betazoid and half human, but we really think it was a way to sort of make sure that she couldn't just spoil the episode in the first 5
Right.
minutes.
Right.
Like, well,
Yeah.
she's only half Betazoid. Then she just gets like an impression, but she can't just be like, oh, this is what's going on. Solved it. Moving
But
on.
I mean, like they made up the Betazoids too. Like,
Yeah.
you
True.
True.
Well, that's a good point.
Why don't you just make them
You're the
less
guys who
powerful?
pointed yourselves into this corner.
Yeah, don't blame the audience.
Yeah. They
Wait,
didn't
did
know
they
that they were making a mixed race character that I would then want to become one day.
I think that's the reason I knew she was not. I listened to your Tragic Hybrids episodes,
Yeah.
and I knew. But then, like watching the episodes, was like, how would I know she's not fully human?
Because she has black irises.
That's what I was going to ask if she was wearing
Whoa.
contacts or if she
Yeah.
naturally
I didn't
black
notice
eyes.
that.
She
Yeah.
did. She looked like she was in a Limp Bizkit video.
I didn't even notice that.
She's the prettiest person in the Limp Bizkit video.
Okay, my turn.
Go ahead, by all means.
Do all of the colors of the shirts mean something specific?
Yes.
I kind of know this because
Moving on.
because Bones is blue and Dr. Crusher's blue. That's like the medical officers, right?
Medical and science.
Okay,
And red
that's
shirts are
because Leonard
captains who
Nimoy is
are
also
gonna
blue
die.
Red on the original series was operations
and expendable.
and expendable. Yes. And red in TNG and beyond is command.
Okay.
And gold, or that greenish yellow color, is operations. So engineering and security and stuff like that.
Okay.
Great,
Good. This is great.
we're doing great. And why? And does Wesley's Crusher's sweater having all those colors? Does that matter at all?
Actually, that's on purpose.
Is it?
I'm going to be the costume dork, but that was just like a little thing they did just for fun. But yeah, it's like he has all the colors.
Because he could be anything. His future is so bright.
Exactly. Potential.
Aww.
The rest is still unwritten. That's what Natasha Bedingfield was talking about.
She was writing about Wesley Crusher.
Yes. Yes.
It's true.
What's
Fact.
Guinan's deal? Guinan is a
Yeah.
bartender,
Mm.
and her
Whoopi.
planet was killed by the Borg.
Yeah.
She seemed kind of chill about them being around, though, even though she was like, when she dropped and they killed my entire planet. I was like, well, you seem kind of just relaxed about them just
That
being
was-
around.
yeah.
I thought you'd go through some sort of traumatic episode, be
That was
triggered or
weird.
anything.
That was weirdly not the first thing you brought up.
You charged me my tab. I noticed that. That was the first thing you brought up. You brought me the wrong drink.
Yeah, so Guinan is I can't remember if we actually know the name of her species ever, Lauren?
If we do, I actually have forgotten.
Q calls her an imp.
I mean, Q
Rude.
calls Q's just rude. Yeah.
Okay, so that was him
Uh,
being rude.
Yeah, that was Q being rude.
I mean, I don't know. Imps might be a race in this universe. I don't know.
We don't. It could
Kind
be.
of a dickish name
But
for a
she's
race.
supposed to be like potentially thousands of years old, which is maybe a reason why she's just like, yeah, I mean, they destroyed my planet. I'm 1,000 years old. It was a long time ago.
I've gotten over it. I've got
Yeah.
a lot of therapy.
Yes,
Yeah.
and
I
she's always kind of the wise. I mean, it's fitting that she's the bartender, right?
Right.
Because, yeah, and they kind of allude to the fact that she and Picard especially have this sort of relationship. How do they put it? Like beyond friendship, beyond. Yeah, but they actually they drop like little breadcrumbs here and there, but there's never like an episode that's like, this is why they're so close.
Yeah, it's just Guinan's a mystery
So
in a
just,
lot of ways.
do they have a relationship outside the ship? Did they have one before they got on the ship?
Well, there is an
Hmm.
episode. There's an episode where yesterday's Enterprise, right? No, sorry. Which one is it? What's it called?
Well, it's Time Zero.
Time
right?
Zero. Time Zero. Yeah,
Mm.
is the one. It's a two-parter where they go into how they met, and it's
Oh.
yeah.
I feel like DJ's Lauren would be a fan of that episode.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'll have to. Okay, I'm actually gonna write that down because we're.
I feel like-
she like
Get some notes.
I feel like Damon would have a lot of problems with one particular actor in that.
Oh no. Oh no. Who? I love hating things.
There is an actor in that episode who plays Mark Twain.
Is it Val Kilmer?
No, it's a guy who literally like made his whole career doing
Hal
a
Holbrook?
one-man show.
Is it Dixie Carter's husband, Hal Holbrook?
Is that him? It might
Hal
be.
Holbrook?
Let's look
Hal
it up
Holbrook.
because
You might remember him from Designing Women, DJ,
Yeah, and
and
wasn't he in,
dying on Designing Women.
Yeah, right.
but his voice and verbal inflections are a lot.
They're-
Wait,
Um,
why is Mark Twain there? I mean, I know I just survived a Robin Hood episode, but
Yeah, we're not going to
why
tell
is
you
Mark
why.
Twain there?
We're not going to tell
Time
you
travel.
Why. It's
Fine.
a time travel episode.
all I'm
Obviously,
gonna
this
Is it literally Mark Twain is on the goddamn Enterprise?
yeah,
For a while.
he is.
Chris Martin, what are you doing here?
What a ludicrous statement.
I have a follow up. Do you know?
Okay.
This is a little bit more on the actor side. Like, do we know how Whoopi Goldberg ended up on this show? Like, it's
Ooh.
bizarre in retrospect. Like,
'Cause
she's
this was her
great. She's
prime.
great. I think Whoopi should be, especially this era, like prime Whoopi should be in every
Yeah.
show.
Okay,
Prime
so
Whoopi.
Whoopi Prime.
Whoopi
Sorry,
Prime.
excuse me.
Whoopi
Excuse
Prime.
me.
Whoopi Prime. Whoopi 1, Whoopi 2. Whoopi is on Star Trek because Whoopi was like, put me on Star Trek.
Nice.
So she was a big fan of the original series. She saw Nichelle Nichols on the show and she was like, look, a black woman who's not a maid. This is a big deal.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then when the new show started, she was friends with LeVar Burton and she called him and she was like, how do I get on this show?
So did
Like,
she
put me
become?
on the
She
show.
came on later in the in the
She's-
second season.
Second season, yeah.
Okay.
So she was really famous already at the time.
Yeah.
Like, this is like peak like acting career Whoopi Goldberg. And if I remember this correctly, she called LeVar Burton and he was like, okay, I can get you a meeting with Gene. And then she had a meeting with Gene Roddenberry and he was like, why
Why do you want to be on this?
do you want to be on Star Trek? And so she told him, so he created the role of Guinan for her and actually created the whole set of 10 Forward, the bar for her
Wow.
character.
That's
Yeah.
pretty cool.
It's pretty great. If that story makes me happy. Thanks for letting me tell that story, Lauren.
Yeah.
I was like, no, tell it.
We are a pro Whoopi podcast. I think that's clear. I think that's been
Yeah.
made clear.
I think we've
Yep.
been very strongly pro Whoopi.
My
She's
opponent's
coming
going to tell
back.
you that I'm anti Whoopi, but I am.
DJ Phillips, not
Staunchly
right for Whoopi
pro-Whoopi.
Goldberg, not right for America.
Do you have another question, Damon?
I do. This is just like a technicality because I don't think we. So in the first season episode we watched, there's Tasha Yar, and then in the second season or the Data episode we watched, he has a crystal that contains her image, which of course makes perfect sense. Why would they have picture frames in the future? They would have a crystal that houses three-dimensional images. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. What happened to Tasha Yar?
Okay, should
I got the
I'll
impression
start?
she.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Larissa,
Can
I'll
you
take-
handle this, please? It's very
I got the
upsetting.
impression it
First
was
of all,
rough.
interesting fact, that's actually Bing Crosby's granddaughter, the
A
singer.
rags to riches story.
Yeah, a real richest to richest story.
She basically what happened is after season 1, and Larissa will probably be able to tell me more. There was I feel like there's a few different stories, but one is that she just felt like the show wasn't a good fit, that she wasn't getting enough meaty storylines. So she was written off the show and she was killed. Yeah, they just were like, bye. Although they still found ways to bring the actress back in other episodes as like her Romulan half daughter, or like it's time travel. So she's
Yeah.
back. Another thing I heard actually was that she left the show to do the wife in the original Pet Cemetery.
Oh.
So that's her.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's another reason, like the timing of it. She decided that it was time
Great
to
choice.
jump ship, Starship, and then like try movies. Yeah, so she's killed by a big oil slick And then what you miss is that in the second episode, all the cast or the crew is drunk because of this space virus. And she goes to Data and basically she's like, you're a walking sex toy. So they're intimate. And that's probably the scene you're thinking about in one of the episodes where he mentions like, we are intimate. Yeah.
Yeah. They
appropriate. So yeah.
Yeah.
So my next question is very broad. So I don't know what the Prime directive is.
Oh, I actually cheated and looked that one up because Tyler kept asking.
Would you like to tell him?
Me?
Yes,
Yeah.
I want to hear Damon's.
I was a little
memory of this.
confused. I was a little confused based on how that episode played out, and we can get into that. But
How justice played out? Oh, it's because they
first
don't
learned-
follow it.
right, they just like, we can't break this rule. Bring the lady aboard the ship.
Let's do it. But I mean, that's, okay.
Yeah.
I first learned about it in the really annoying Star Trek movie with the Star Trek babies, Star Trek Into Darkness, where they are on that very primitive planet and they weren't supposed to interfere with that planet's natural progression because there's a volcano that's going to go off. But I think just in general, if you encounter a primitive race or species on a planet, you aren't supposed to you can't inform them about space travel. You can't interfere unless they've already reached that sort of scientific plane. You can't jumpstart their you can't just come in and give them a cure for cancer or something, or teach them how to launch a rocket into space.
The way it's defined is like any sort of pre-warp civilization. So if they've discovered, that ability to then it's like, okay, you're in the club, and anything before that, you're not supposed to kind of pull the curtain back and show the man behind the curtain. You're supposed to be pretty secretive, which actually Larissa and I were talking about in the episode Justice. It was like, wait a minute, this is a pre-warp civilization, so
and they
why
just pop
are they...
in.
So actually that's like a big flaw of that episode.
But then they also
It's
can't
the
interfere
only
with
flaw,
their laws
really.
either, right?
They also have to respect the laws and culture of whoever they're hanging out with. So everything in that episode is wrong.
Let's get into it. So we're talking about Justice season 1 episode 8 or 7 on Netflix because they combo a lot of the two-parters.
Mm-hmm.
Would love to give a recap of this one.
Please
Myself.
Go for it.
Oh, I'm so excited to hear other people recap Star Trek.
The away team visits a planet of sexy Swedish whites. It seems perfect, but they find out every crime gets a death sentence. Meanwhile, the Enterprise also encounters a ghostly vessel in orbit.
Ooh, good job.
Well
Thank you.
done, Deej.
I wrote these out because I was like, I'm not going to remember. So just a little bit of a side note here. My wife Lauren, is wanted to watch every single episode. So I have watched the required 4 episodes and then an additional 90 episodes.
Like extra credit, basically. You get a lot of extra credit.
Basically,
You should be answering my questions.
Good
DJ.
luck,
You shouldn't be
Damon, is what
asking
I'm
questions.
saying.
Okay, well, first of all, DJ, I like the fact that you said Swedish because my husband Keith and I just said Aryan.
Oh yeah,
that might be because of the Jewish background in our family, but
yes,
yeah,
same. I also literally have written here white Aryan fit aliens.
I wrote.
It's
First
eerie.
off, I called this place Moose Knuckle Island because the men's little tunics were obscene. I also said it was the land of beautiful women and average men.
Oh yeah.
You can always tell when there's a straight guy in charge. It's beautiful women with someone's dad as the beautiful man. I'm like, what is this garbage?
Yep.
Running around in little tunics.
All the women have beautiful muscle tone.
Mm-hmm.
And
the men, they've got that sort of Californian guy who's sort of gone to seed, sort of things are starting to shift downward.
And
he used to work out in college.
And he
and
just
some-
couldn't find the time anymore.
a little ring of
got kids now.
fuzzy hair around the belly button.
Oh.
which is oddly visible with a little missing cutout, little triangular cutout in there.
Even their
it's
law
offensive.
enforcement.
Yeah, oh my
they have
God.
do you one of you guys want to attempt to describe to the listeners what is it the Edo people? See, I'm
Yeah, they're the Edo
The
race.
Yeah,
I can't remember the name of the
aliens.
planet, but it's the Edo race.
Rubicon 3.
Yeah, I'd love to hear you guys try to describe to your listeners what these costumes are like. Also, I'll just add that my notes say Miss Piggy hair. Like,
Yes.
this
Yes,
is like
very
yes.
Miss Piggy. But Muppets Take Manhattan, Miss Piggy.
Yeah.
I have wigs written in all caps and bold.
just so much curly blonde hair on the majority of the women. But yeah, I want to hear you guys actually try to describe the outfits.
It's very
I would say it was-
1987 Dolly Parton wig. Like
Oh,
that.
yeah. And ringlets.
The law
Ringlets.
enforcement,
Ringlets.
they sort of have like little triangular cowls that they are wearing that then like meet right at the very tippy tip at their right below their chest, and then they have a little triangular bottom part as well. It's stupid. It's the stupidest clothes I've ever seen.
And everybody else has these outfits too.
Yes. I wrote they look like shitty Project Runway half ball gowns.
Yeah, they like gave them tunics from ancient Greece and were like, make it work.
You have to create an outfit for an orgiastic planet. Go. Make it work. Thank you, Mood. I also wrote
I'll
that
cut out triangles. Okay.
and I'll just sew the very tips of them together.
Just
Good job.
the tips.
The teenagers that Wesley goes to hang out with are the oldest teenagers I've ever seen in my life. I think one of them was my age. He was the hairiest teenager I've ever seen.
And they have like those weird V-neck pants.
Yes.
Did anybody notice that?
The V waist pant.
It was like Britney Spears' I'm a Slave for You low rise.
It absolutely
have you.
was.
A low-rise
you are
diaper.
Right.
I like when in the they like, oh, this has to be in the future, and they like it's like in Battlestar Galactica they have paper, but all the paper just has the corners cut off. It was like, guys, you can just use paper. It's fine. We know it's the future. This is not gonna.
Like
Some
that.
poor prop master had to cut off the corners of every fucking piece of paper they used on that show. It's the same thing. They're like,
Crack
they're
that.
tunics, but triangles cut out. It's like, can we just do tunics, guys? Come on. We get it. We get it.
Sometimes design like that is just like that would be impractical. Are you even thinking about like how they were? No, okay.
Our tunic technology is light years ahead of yours.
Meanwhile, the future people, our heroes, are in baby onesies. So maybe we shouldn't talk out of school too much about the tunics.
Although I do like how there's varying degrees of skimpiness depending on what the actors were comfortable with.
Right.
And then I didn't know if you guys noticed during one of the more intense scenes, they just like put a random older person. Like there's just suddenly a grandma who's in the same weird cutout tunic.
Yes.
Grandmas
Just
like
to
to play.
Just to be like, yeah, there are older people, but
But we're not going to show them on camera.
That lady.
Right.
I've always.
but she has like the grandma version. It's like, we're not giving her the really short shorts. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Why not?
She doesn't have a belly keyhole.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Damon, you were going to say something. Sorry.
I was just gonna say, the God part of it felt like these were two episodes that just sort of got stapled together, and they were like, well, we got this idea for this God-like creature that's like hanging outside a primitive planet, and we've got this plan to have a bunch of scantily clad people running around and implying they're just basically fucking all the time.
Yes.
I don't know how to work this together, but I'm just gonna do it however I want and figure out a way to do it.
Fucking and jogging and fucking.
Yeah.
and
Why walk when you
jogging.
can jog in your little tunic of all things?
So stupid.
Yeah, so usually
absolutely.
there's a start in Star Trek, there's an A story and a B story, like some, formats were during that. And this is it works better sometimes than others. I think that's the nice way to put it. But yeah, I don't know if we should explain to your listeners like what the B story is with the ship that they discover.
Yeah, well, so there's a ship that's outside, that's rotating around this planet, and I guess it's neither here nor there, for lack of a better way. I mean, it's sort of
Interdimensional.
see through, and only Geordi can sense it. And then I guess they turned on their high beams and then they could see part of it.
It's
Basically.
made of fog, so it makes sense.
And it sends what I wrote the abyss, because it sends like this abyss-like creature onto the ship, which short circuits Data. I was also confused because Dr. Wesley or Dr. Crusher, she helps Data, and I thought that IT would come and help Data.
Yeah. I
But
have
I
that
guess
written
she-
down as a.
Me
They
too.
didn't know there. Also, Data uses contractions in this episode. There's a lot going on.
Oh, does he not
That's
use contractions?
No, he doesn't. But he does in this episode.
We're still working out the kinks on that. So we find out that the Edo worship this ship outside that orbits their planet as a god, like a godhead type thing. And when Picard breaks the Prime Directive, that was the main thrust of this episode, and takes one of the Edo on board the Enterprise so that she can identify it. I don't know what the purpose of bringing her on there was. And I also want to say, while we were there, I found that the Enterprise is decorated like a 90s mini mall meets a Victorian insane asylum. A lot of rounded corners and a lot of padded rooms.
I have said in the past, it's like the lobby of like a Hilton in like
Yes.
1998.
Yes.
Yeah. Lots of planters.
A lot of planters, a lot of rose, like muted
Yeah.
pinks.
Yes.
I bet it smells like a Cinnabon.
They pump
Well, there's
that
one every
in,
1,000
actually.
Yeah, they pump that through the air filtration.
Very soothing to the crew.
I also noticed that they have that Picard had a poster of space in his room.
It's a Successories poster. It makes sense.
It's actually a magic
It's a-
eye.
I thought it's a snapshot from one of his vacations.
Yes, this specific star formation. I love it.
I think this episode, I mean, it is a bad episode, but it does set up like 3 specific things for me that like moving forward. One is that all of the, like, not to go too far into it, but all of the action is very disappointing in this show. They're not stunt people doing, well, they probably are, but I mean, like, the stunts are not the most impressive. And so this definitely sets the tone for that, because every time there's like a little tussle, it's like 2 gangly teenagers fighting over the last Snickers bar or something. It's very like, I'm gonna tell mom.
Yeah.
And then 2, they're always like, I feel like this happened several times, and I have watched more than the required episode, so I don't remember which one.
We get it. You watched more than you were.
I'm not
required
saying
to
I'm an
watch.
expert. I'm just saying I watched a lot of TV this week. But it's the Edo God thing, that whole storyline of them finding this cage. They do tend to be like, there's this mystery, and then they like kind of solve it, and then they just never speak of it again. They're like, okay, well, on to the next place. And it's
It
kind of like,
reminded me-
wait, what was the deal with that? Because that's kind of interesting. An interdimensional creature that like seeded life on this planet. We're not gonna, no? Okay.
Yep.
I mean, like,
I believe even the last line of the episode was, I was hoping we could learn more about it. I yelled, me too. But it reminded me it reminded me a lot of the small smattering of bits I've seen of the original series, of just like, oh, look at this mysterious thing we've found. Well, gotta go. It just felt very underbaked. It felt very half-assed, maybe even.
well, I think it is also indicative of like, you know, late 80s, early 90s TV of like, if they're going to do an arc, it's the 2-story arc, but they're not doing like season arcs. And we talked a little bit about that, I think, at the beginning of the episode. It's like, it's very episodic. So there is like a motivation to be like, well, and then,
but it also, I would say, you guys brought it up. Don't bite off more than you can chew.
They don't really start doing that until or doing arcs until DS9. Like they do little teensy ones here and there in TNG. Like they do bring, like, after we'll talk about Best of Both Worlds, but they do actually go into like the trauma that Picard experiences after that with an episode. So they do bring stuff back eventually, but that's not until like later. Like at least the first 4 seasons, there's not much. It's It's really just like in and out, single episodes, reset, right back. And like, how many times on our podcast, Lauren, have I been like, are we going to talk about this ever again? This was a thing? Nope. Okay.
Nope. Yeah.
Well,
no.
And no. Well, and if they do bring it back, it's a character beat, which is, I think, fine. And I think if you're going to err one way or the other, that's probably the safer thing to do, is like character development. What does this mean to Picard? But like, I'm like a sci-fi nerd. I want to know about these Edo God people. Like, so it's a little frustrating, but I mean, I get the practical side of it.
And they are doing that with the new series, like the new Star Trek series. They're going back to a lot of that stuff and re-examining it and getting deeper into it. Like they do that specifically with the Borg in Picard, in the new Picard series. Like they really get deep into the Borg, and they did that also on Voyager too with the Borg. But like, you know, this is early.
Yeah, well, and to be completely fair to the show, like I'm that I think is a more modern TV watching sensibility of like expecting, like, if you're going to set this up, then it pays off later in a arc sort of situation, as opposed to just in that episode.
This was not meant to be binged.
Right. They do superficially resolve it. They're like, well, everyone's okay, so let's go.
Yeah, we gotta go.
I do think I was expecting this to be super bad, and I didn't hate it as much. I just thought the latter half was just that just started skirting issues that it sounded like it really wanted to bring up, like it wanted to talk about the death penalty and justice. Yeah. Hence why they named it that. Yeah. But then it was just like, we gotta run. We can't just be doing all this stuff all the time.
Yeah, it's like, oops, we spent too much time on this like pseudo high school makeout scene, so we don't have enough time to talk about capital punishment.
Yeah.
We haven't even mentioned the whole reason they have to get in this problem with the Prime Directive is because Wesley accidentally steps on flowers, and then that's
it's sentenced to death.
It's funny you mentioned that
he did his own stunt, though. I don't
DJ,
know.
Edit your comments out about stunts.
Take it back
when you do this episode.
But I was watching this with Keith, and he's not like a big Star Trek fan, but he will watch TNG with me. And he said, I understand this is ridiculous. Like the costumes are ridiculous, the whole like Playboy Mansion in space, and it's a really weak ending. But he said, I'm still entertained. And I think that goes back to what we said kind of when we introduced this episode, is that there are like episodes that are just bad, like gouge my eyes out bad. But I think we thought this one would be at least a little bit more meaty for us to talk about. I don't know, Larissa, like what do you think?
Yeah, like we said earlier, like we weren't going to show you like the most racist TNG episode that ever existed that now has gone down in like the folklore of the franchise as like the worst thing ever. Like we're not going to ask you to watch that because we are not going to watch
What's
that
the name
bullshit.
of that episode though?
It's called Code of Honor, and it is horrible. But like there aren't really, I mean, aside from episodes like Justice, there aren't really episodes that are like aside from, Code of Honor, that's like just throw it away. Like there aren't any episodes that are like there's nothing to take away from it. You know what
I thought this one just took more than it could do in a 45-minute slot. I do want to talk about Wesley and Beverly Crusher in a more overall way, because Wesley, first off, I was surprised by how I did not hate Wesley. I was really waiting for him to like become like the precocious kid, like Olivia on the Cosby Show or something, where I was just like, oh, shut up. But he never got that point, at least maybe not in the episodes we watched. Mm-hmm. But he did he brought up something that I didn't think about, and I'm sure the show somewhat deals with this, in that he is the child of one of the crew members. And I mean, these people, go on 5-year missions. And I mean, at least in the original series was part of the intro, we're on a 5-year mission. And because those crew members, for the most part, aside from Uhura, were all men, and it was made in the 60s, no one thought about, well, what about their families? Do they have families? Do they have wives? Do they have children? And it was interesting that Wesley is here as his mom is on this mission. And it made me think, like, are there other kids on the Enterprise? Is there a whole school? Are there like lower decks children?
Yeah, there actually is like a classroom, and like we were talking, Larissa and I, about how like there's a bartender on the Enterprise. It's like a small city, and that sometimes
there are
comes
civilians
into play.
there are civilians on the ship.
Yeah.
There are whole families.
That's
there are
kinda
like
interesting.
people giving birth on the ship and stuff, and everyone's like, we know what we got into, and we brought our kids on the ship. There are episodes about like what happens to a kid if their parent who is in Starfleet dies in the line of duty.
Mhm.
There are actually a couple episodes about that. Yeah.
This made me uncomfortable in the way that the movie Nail makes me uncomfortable. There was a lot of like like weird touching and a lot of like weird looks, and Riker is weird. Like Jonathan Frakes is a weird actor.
He's
so weird. And this, like, it gets like you get kind of used to his weirdness, but like this is the first, time I've sort of rewatched it, and I'm like, he's he makes strange choices.
You know what I think it is? I think, and this is my own, fan-made history for this character, is like he's a late bloomer. Like he was probably like really geeky and specky when he was a kid, and then he got like handsome when he was older, but he never got the social cues really right down pat. I speak from experience. And so like he always has like sort of a leery feeling. I'm like, dude, but just back off, all right? Like that episode we watched later with Vosh, where he just sees her and just like, smiling at her. I'm like, dude, leave the lady alone. She's on a tour of the ship.
I feel like you have a lot to say about this.
No, when you said that, I was like, you know what? I also noticed this.
No,
I did not put it into words.
I was speaking to our guests.
Oh, I'm sorry. It makes more sense that you would have more to say.
You can't see that I'm speaking to her square.
They definitely like were trying to make Riker a more Kirk playboy kind of character, and actually Frakes has said that like he wished that Riker could have been poly or bi, because it would have like been cooler for his character, and he would have not come off as such a womanizer and more of just like enjoying people's company and I don't know.
Enjoying people's company. It does sound like
that's better. I don't think it's now he's just creeping everybody.
I don't know.
Yeah, he's
just creeping on everybody.
He's just like a pickup artist. It feels like he like read a book on picking up women, and it's like, okay, dude, you're making it weird for everyone. We're all stuck here for 5 years. The least you can do is not make it weird.
Although I have to say, Larissa and I were talking, kind of skipping ahead a little bit to Best of Both Worlds, but Larissa and I were texting about Shelby. Like, eventually, one of the questions I have for you is just the way the women, especially the guests, we watched a lot of episodes with guest actors, like female guest actors, and I'm curious, especially since you guys deal with so much in the 80s and 90s, like how you felt Star Trek did. But
I took notes on this. This was a thing I noticed.
Yeah, because with Shelby in Best of Both Worlds with the blonde curly hair, I had
Jane Austen hair.
I had the thought that if you had put a man in that role, like it would have perfectly worked as well. And, they never got like awkward, oh, it's because she's a woman, or any sort of like weird tension between Riker and her. It was just that she was an over-enthusiastic up-and-comer and stepping on his toes.
Yes,
and I did appreciate that.
I was waiting for the other shoe to drop with her character just because of when this was made. So I was waiting for her to be like sort of villainized. And I was surprised by how well they handled her character, and that she was not portrayed as like, oh, well, she's really ambitious. There's something up. And it wasn't because I thought she was villainous. I was just like, didn't have enough faith in the show to be like, oh, you're going to make this. She's going to like rip off a mask and she's going to be a Borg or something. And we're going to find out she was the villain the whole time because she's too ambitious and she speaks her mind. But no, it wasn't that. I think you're absolutely right. If it was played by a man, if it was played by a man, I wouldn't have referred to her as not quite Glenn Close, but otherwise
she does look like
God, you're totally right.
She has a Glenn Close vibe, especially for that period.
She does. Yeah.
But otherwise, I mean, it would. I think, those scenes would play exactly the same way. It wasn't that she wasn't that she was a bitch. It was that was
exactly.
she was ambitious, and and I think it also played well in the Riker thing of like, why are you still here, man? You're doing fine. Go get a ship of your own.
Go get a ship. Go get a fucking
Which also
ship.
does some like meta narrative stuff of like, wait, why is he still here? But
it's
if Sulu got his own ship, what is he still
cool.
doing here?
It's because the Enterprise.
No, I know.
Because the Enterprise is the best ship.
But
and
also,
he's
you don't want to
already
be
on
like
the
kicking
best
off
ship.
people off the show left and right.
Also that. Also,
That's why Tim Riggins went to high school for 12 years.
Do you want to move on to Measure of a Man?
Yes.
Yeah.
So you guys, this is like. So I'll just say before we talk about it that when I was watching this week, Dan walked into the living room and he was like, "How many fucking times can you watch this episode?"
He seems great.
No, but he's right. I've seen it a lot. He was like, "Did you even need to rewatch this episode?"
Why
And
didn't
I
you
was
just
like,
recite it in your sleep?
No, I didn't have to, but I wanted to.
I think maybe we're on the same page of this. This is my favorite one of the ones that we are required to watch. You want to recap this one, Dames?
I will. So in this one, oh, you know what? I didn't review all my plot devices, but in this one, Dr. Maddox, who I refer to as Space Steve Miller.
We said
Stephen
Space
Miller, not Steve Miller.
We said Space Adam Levine.
Ooh. More hair than Stephen Miller, but more smirky than Adam Levine.
Yeah,
he looks
definitely.
like a pre-California tattoo Adam Levine.
He comes on board for a tour of the Enterprise and wants to analyze data. Essentially, he wants to take him apart and see how he works, which Data doesn't want to submit to. But because Data is technically considered property of Starfleet, he decides to resign from his post. But again, there's a trial claiming that he can't necessarily do that because he's not a sentient being, at least, or I may not be phrasing that right, but there's a trial. I always love a trial where Riker, even though he doesn't want to, where he believes in Data's self-determination, he has to play prosecutor and argue for the Federation or for Starfleet, and Picard decides to defend Data's autonomy. And in the end, after a humiliating trial, what I would call a humiliating trial from both sides, they determine that Data has the right to his own self-determination and is not merely an object, but a being.
Do we know, did Data join Starfleet voluntarily?
Yes.
You know this?
Yeah, they talk about that. I had this. This was one of my overall questions, but I saved it for this. What's Data's deal? So, I guess does this take place in relation to the original? Is it 100 years later? Is how far apart are the two?
I thought it was something like 80 years.
Okay,
almost 100 years.
I knew there was a fair gap between them, so I just assumed that technology had progressed and then we've got Data's running left, right, and center. But Data apparently is a unique creature created by a Dr. Soong.
Dr. Noonien Soong.
So what's going on there? I imagine a sort of Edward Scissorhands like relationship with Vincent Price, where Soong died and took his secrets with him on how to create droids, and that's why Stephen Miller wants to take him apart.
Yeah, it kind of is that way in a way. Yeah, because Soong is, well, at this point, Soong is actually not dead. He's just gone and nobody knows where he is. Right?
Does he come back, and who plays them?
Brothers?
Is this after I thought this was before Brothers.
I'm not sure.
Well,
DJ, did you watch Brothers?
No, we didn't watch that one.
No.
Oh, no, you might be right. I think this is after Brothers. So he's dead.
Yeah, I thought they referred to him as dead. Or that's the impression I got.
He is dead. The man who built Data he was an expert in cybernetics, and he was kind of like rogue and like went off onto this planet by himself and built these androids and was sort of separated from the Federation, and nobody really knew. He was like a reclusive weirdo. So
was he
all
a big?
Of his, sorry,
oh, sorry. Go ahead.
All of his research and stuff is just sort of just lives in Data.
Yeah, he's just like, he was an independent creator, basically.
Yeah.
A job creator.
He was a job creator.
Was he a big Halloween fan? Because Data looks like the spitting image of Michael Myers.
Which was a Captain Kirk mask.
It all comes full circle.
I didn't know that because I hate horror movies.
I've never seen it. I just know.
Yeah, me too.
That factoid. Yeah.
Did they give him that gold tinged skin on purpose, or because they mastered hair really well, but the skin, the sallow skin, seems like a misfire.
You're asking, did they do that on accident, Damon?
I'm talking about
the show.
I'm talking about Dr. Soon.
Oh, okay. You in universe. I was like, yeah.
I know why they did it on the show. Like, he has to look like an android, for fuck's sake.
That's a really good question, actually, because Lauren, he does eventually make Juliana, and she like looks. So we discover more Soongian or a couple more Soongian androids later on, and one of them like looks very human and has tear ducts and like. Her skin, like nobody knows that she's an android until
not even her.
She doesn't even know she's an android.
Blade Runner.
Yeah, it's very Blade Runner.
Origami.
Yeah. but like I don't really know. Like so there's no real answer for like did he not know how to do that yet? Like make them look realistic or not.
I was just being catty, honestly.
Yeah, but you're asking Trekkies though.
I do have a story though about that.
Okay,
please. It's more of a production story. I think they just wanted to do some visual hint, but and they tried everything. If you look online, there's tests of him being bubblegum pink and like Battleship Gray, and they landed on this color. And I think Brent Spiner, the actor who played him, even said like, why wouldn't he just have like normal skin? And Gene Roddenberry's comment was, well, how do you know what Data has isn't better than skin? Right. So kind of going back to like the whole bald comment with Patrick Stewart's character about like, well, why would people be bald in the future? And it's like, well, in the future, nobody cares. Right. It was kind of, explained away. But he does have an evil twin who's basically Brent Spiner, full asshole mode,
Yeah.
So that's pretty fun.
That seems good. I think Brent Spiner could do that.
It's very fun. I really like all the lore episodes. They're very fun.
Yeah, it like every question kind of makes you want to watch that episode. You know what I mean? Like where they explain, like, there's very clearly a backstory with I put Jagoff. What is her name?
She's the JAG officer, and I wrote Jagoff.
Oh, Jagoff. Okay, that's why I put Jagoff. I was like, what? That can't be her name.
Her name is Philippa Lavoie.
Yeah.
And she is played by an actress named Amanda McBroom, who is also a songwriter and wrote The Rose for Bette Midler.
Wow.
She looks familiar, but I tried to look her up and I could not recognize anything she had been in.
I stopped reading after I saw she wrote The Rose.
You just blacked out and woke up just a few minutes ago.
Love. Yeah, it was.
Every music teacher in America is like, hey, Damon, we're going to be singing this again. I'm like, oh, for fuck's sake.
I loved it.
So because there's clearly a history between her character and Picard. Is that in the show, or is that just okay? Because it was a little bit like it was clearly a character building, but it made me wonder: is like, am I supposed to know about this? It was a little too vague for me because I'm like, they just keep referencing this thing that now it feels like I'm supposed to know.
Oh, see, I got that it was like. It was vague enough that they were just dancing around something and you could put the pieces together. Although when I saw the Vosh episode and the Robin Hood thing, I was like, oh, there's something here. I'm going to have to look it up.
Yeah, there is another episode before.
Because they just acted like I was supposed to know who she was. I'm like, what's going on here?
Yeah, she is actually from another episode.
Right.
But Lavoie is not. She's just...
Maybe they're just being a little heavy-handed with the references to it. So, like, if you say a couple times and like make reference to it, then you're like, okay, they're just building this rapport that they have. But they said it so much that I probably because there was a commercial break in the original thing, and it was like, remember this history that you forgot about between the Budweiser and the, and then like, but I'm just like, oh, wait, what? Wait, what?
Yeah.
Anyway, it's just being dumb. But she ends up being the judge of this whole thing.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really interesting that it does happen in, I guess, in a lot of shows, but they like it seems like she's making up these rules and then being like, these are the rules. It's like it sounds like religion when they're like, I mean, you all have to go to hell unless you do this thing that I also made up. You're like, what? You made it up.
Jesus has to die for your sins, even though he's the one who's the arbiter of the sins.
I feel like they try to write it away a little bit by like saying that it's sort of like frontier law
code,
and she doesn't have a staff yet, and everything's so new, and like they're just to get our main characters who we love in these difficult positions.
Sure.
I thought it was kind of interesting. I'm actually of two minds about it. I thought it was interesting that Frakes or Riker played the prosecutor, I guess. Yeah, sure. He played that role, and there wasn't any confusion or like weird made up drama that Data misunderstood what his role was, that he was just, doing his assigned part. I thought that was like very
adult.
It was adult and like expecting the audience to like being able to follow along. Like, we're not idiots. We don't need like this sort of like canned pre-made drama. But then I was also like, well, why did we force this? Why did we force this sort of awkwardness of Frakes having to play the prosecutor role? In terms of like the story, I was like, well, then why are we forcing him to do this?
I kind of feel personally that it's just another way to set up that Data is a person.
Mm-hmm.
Like
right.
that here's another person who's his friend. And that's more evidence that he is sentient and that he is that he should have autonomy, because even this person who's tasked with trying to prove that he is not sentient doesn't want to do it because
That's a good point.
They don't believe that it's true. It also gives us that, Lauren, we talked about that little Frakes moment where there's that close up on his face and he sees that thing and he's like, oh.
I do remember that. I was too distracted though by him saying his password out loud, which is just like a security nightmare. Don't just type it in.
Everyone says their passwords out loud ludicrous on this show.
It's just like a sign. I was talking with a friend about like think tropes in like movies that take place in the future and like what is so like telling about when they were, and the internet is like the thing that people didn't see coming. And so when you see things like that where it's like, you would never say your password out loud. Why would you say your password out loud? It's your goddamn password. Also, like when I was watching this, I thought about this because everyone's like seated at a desk, like even on the bridge, they're like, typing on computers. I'm like, now you just have like something on the other side of your phaser where you can control the entire goddamn ship. Like it would be like a smartphone on the other side of your phaser. That's neither here nor there.
Wouldn't have all the pads. They do have standing desks on the upper tier, though.
True. I did notice Worf was constantly having to stand. Poor bastard.
He's got a bad lower back. So
he does. He's always like leaning imperiously like a cat.
He's so tall.
This was another moment. I mean, I think in the story, especially when it was written, Dr. Stephen Miller or whatever calls Data it, while Picard keeps referring to Data as he, and Data also refers to himself as he. And while, I'm sure that's to underscore that Dr. Maddox sees him as an object, but it also like, because of like today's, the loaded question of like pronouns, it also like read in another way now of just like ignoring someone telling you this is how I would like you to refer to me as. Yeah. And I'm going to be calling you it. Is that okay? Does that humiliate you in any way? It was just an interesting moment.
I don't care.
Right.
Still
well,
do.
Because I don't like you, even though your hair is immaculate.
Yes, it is.
Your skin off-putting.
I have another question for you guys. This is for all of you. Do you think the soul is more than just information?
How much time do we have?
We
only have 45 minutes. We got to get in and out.
We're in this.
Should I smoke a ball now or should I wait until we've started answering?
Depends on how good your answer needs to be.
I think it's interesting that that Lavoie says, like, I don't know if I have a soul. I don't know if anyone does. Like, I think it's cool that they put that in there as like a question that is still posed in hundreds of years.
Yeah.
Right.
And something that people still are interested in answering. Like I think that's really cool. I mean, of course, I love Star Trek too. So and I love this episode. So
don't show your hand. We're gonna do the ratings later.
Oh no. Well, I'll just say one of the things I really like about this episode is that in Star Trek and TNG, but also all the other shows, there are times where they try to kind of mine the gray area of certain issues.
Yeah.
I mean, there are a lot of Star Trek is like just these morality plays type setup. And what I like about this one is I remember like the first time or two actually watching it being kind of pulled back and forth. Like I wanted Data to be okay and win, but I remember them actually giving some pretty good arguments why he should be considered, property of Starfleet, or like he is just a toaster. And so for me, I really actually enjoyed just the kind of the suspense of like, oh God, I know he's going to be okay, but like, how do we get there?
I think this was like it was great that this was the next episode after we watched Justice, because I think it was like, well, this is how to do that episode better. You don't need sort of all this faff of, this ridiculous spaceship hanging outside of a planet. Like they just sort of dove in. This is the story we're going to be doing, and we're just going to dig into it.
And it's a bottle episode. They don't go anywhere. They're just
they don't really go
the
anywhere. They never
time.
leave the ship.
Well, this is the kind of episode that I would have been super bored by as a kid. Like, when watching it with my dad, I would have been like, really? This is what we're doing? And now I'm like, please don't do any action. It's very bad. Please just talk about interesting things.
Yes.
Does Lauren like this one?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
She likes this one a lot. Yeah. I don't know if this one is her favorite, but it's certainly up there. I would have to ask her. I'll type at her right now and see.
I also want to point out the trial. I mean, I hinted at this, but the trial is also just humiliating all over the place on every angle.
For everyone.
He rips out his arm. I was like, dude, consent. You can't just rip out people's forearms.
He turns him off.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. He turns him off.
He does say, I'm sorry.
Going through his private
he does say, I'm
stuff?
sorry.
Oh,
and it's
he says, may I, or something, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does.
May I?
And Data's like, I mean, I don't have feelings, so do whatever you want.
Take it. And then he go through his stuff. Like Picard, who is like ostensibly the defense, is like going through his bags and is like, let's find all the most humiliating things. Do you feel humiliation, Data? Let's find out.
Let's talk about your sex life.
Have you ever been in love, Data?
Yeah.
It's very weird.
Shall we move on?
I wanted to ask y'all how did you feel about the Guinan conversation in this episode?
Remind me what she talks about. She talks about slavery.
Yeah, they talk about slavery.
Yeah. I thought it was great.
He goes to 10 forward and he's like, I don't fucking know what to do. This is like, he's like, Riker's gonna win, and Guinan's like, well, talk to me about it. And then that whole thing where she says, she's like, there always have been disposable people that do work that is too hazardous or inconvenient for other people, and thousands of data is all disposable. And it's like that's like the Guinan way, she's like saying the thing and then letting the person make their own opinion about it, their own connections, and then she's like, I don't know, what do you think?
Yeah, she leads them to the conclusion because in this episode, Picard realizes like, oh my God, you're talking about enslaving a new type of race of beings. And she's like, well, I don't know, maybe slavery is too harsh of a word.
And he's like,
I don't think it is. And that's kind of what the turning point of the episode is.
That is good. And I think if I had watched it in the 90s, I would have thought that sort of analogy was like really heavy handed. But I think now in the environment we're in, like talking about the 13th Amendment, talking about illegal immigrants, it does like, oh yeah, this is just this shit all over again with a different name on it.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. And like one of the things I think Star Trek does really well, and in general that like sci-fi does really well for subjects like this, is that it puts it into a context that you can sort of separate yourself from it and look at it from a different perspective, as opposed to being inside of it.
Yeah,
like
right.
we can look at it and be like, oh shit. Well,
it gives you the
that is
luxury of the
horrible.
metaphor that you can
Yes.
sort of like stretch your legs and play around with the idea.
Yes. I also want to say just Picard. Just Patrick Stewart in this episode.
Oh yeah,
He's top
great.
notch.
Just
Top notch.
I also want to point out that Data unwraps presents like my mother.
That's right.
Saving. Don't tear that.
We can use that.
Save it. We
I'm
can
like, how
reuse
many tiny gifts are we giving each
Oh,
other with
God.
shreds of wrapping?
I was like,
I do
thanks
like that he
for-
tears it off the box, and then he carefully takes it off the box, and then when Wesley tells him you should just tear into it, he has it completely off the box, and then he just tears it in half.
Oh, I love it.
Fantastic.
Fucking love that.
Best of both worlds.
Oh yeah. Okay.
B.O.B.
So this is a two-parter,
Babwa.
and I can recap this one real quick. Picard is taken over by the Borg.
Boom.
Well
Boom.
done.
Yep. Boom.
Synopsed. Why did I say second ship? Is there a second Enterprise in this? Is this
The
one?
Admiral is on a ship.
Admiral, that's
They're
what it
floating
is.
by the Admiral. I didn't
This
get
is
the Admiral's
Well,
name.
yeah, and then there's a whole battle, and there's lots of ships that are destroyed.
Yeah.
There's multiple ships, actually,
Yeah.
TJ.
Well, we see the
You
first.
lowballed the ships.
The first. I think this is the first time, at least in the episodes that we watched, that you see like another non-Enterprise Starfleet ship, and
Yeah.
it's cool. I love seeing that. Like, I think the Enterprise is cool as shit.
You got to hand
Like,
it to him.
I think this is my favorite Enterprise, and I know that's sacrilegious to some like original series people, but like
This is the Enterprise D, people. It is
I prefer
also
the
my
Scott
favorite.
Bakula-led Enterprise, so I am offended.
I also remembered
That's just
as watching
Enterprise.
this, just Enterprise.
Yeah.
That I had a diecast model like toy when I was a kid of the Enterprise, and it had a separating saucer. So I always like this, and in this episode we get sauce sep. So
Yeah,
I was
we do.
like, and they tease it too. So you're like, oh, dude, we're gonna sep some sauce for sure. And I was like so pumped about it, and then we get sauce sep. I'm like, it was a dream come true.
Keep thinking you're saying soft serve.
We probably have that too. It's the Enterprise. You can
That's
have whatever.
probably. It's
We
by
really-
the Cinnabon.
We really don't get sauce sep very often, but when
No.
we do,
I didn't
it
even know
is-
that was a feature of the Enterprise.
Well, funny enough, we before this episode, because I watched it in like chronological order. I watched Q Who,
Mhm.
and they have it's the first appearance of the Borg, and it's another sauce sep episode.
Mhm.
It's weird. I don't know if they always come together, but
they're just popping them off left, right, and center.
I don't need this.
Wait, which movie do they separate the sauce? It's Generations, right? Did they separate the saucer section? I think it
I-
is. And
I
they
think
crash
so, 'cause
landed
it
into
crashes,
a planet.
yeah.
Oh yeah, I
And it
remember
just,
that
like,
scene.
It goes like, and then all the dirt and trees and stuff
Yeah.
are coming up over the. Oh man,
I remember
scene's
that.
Cool.
I must have seen
Never
that
seen
movie.
Generations. I should see Generations. Is it a shit one?
It is not good, but it is my favorite.
I understand that, Eric.
Excellent.
Yeah. Best of Both Worlds is really important to like all Star Trek that came after it. So like this episode gets referenced regularly. Like it gets referenced in DS9 because Captain Ben Sisko loses his wife at Wolf 359, which is that big battle with the
where all the
Borg.
destroyed ships are.
Yeah, where all the destroyed ships are. We just reference this interaction with the Federation and the Borg all the time. It's the basis for the new Picard reboot.
Oh,
or
really?
the Picard sequel. Yeah. It goes deep into his experiences recovering from that, and this episode is like it's pretty important to canon.
I enjoyed this one, but Sorry, Lauren.
No,
Go
I
ahead.
was just going to say, I'll add that Larissa kind of alluded to this earlier about how our good episode list was really long. And we decided if we were doing Measure of a Man, which is more of a talking heads court scene, Larissa kind of brought up the point that like we should balance it with something that was action-y for Star Trek, I guess. Like it reads a little bit more sci-fi. So we also thought it kind of balanced that out a little bit to give you guys a slightly different flavor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, it definitely feels like, I mean, I was constantly getting like Wrath of Khan vibes, especially when they're hiding in the nebula from each other. It reminded me of that scene where they're, I don't know, they're using a Z-axis to avoid Khan or something. He'll never look up.
He doesn't do math.
His
His chest plate prevents his
neck issues.
Do left and right.
It's like the original.
suit.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The original Batman costume.
Why would you fight crime in this? But this one, I mean, because I've watched so many Star Trek movies, this one felt like slipping into an old pair of shoes. It had those same like sorry beats. No, DJ, it's not weird. It's like sweaty shoes that you've been wearing all day. You took them off and now you're going back into them. So they're kind of cold and it's weird. Yeah. I know that DJ hates feet, possibly even more than me. So it's fun to watch him wince.
I hate feet too. I understand. I think feet are
disgusting.
They're only cool. Their feet
would
are
cut 'em
great
off if I
on
could.
babies, but there's
yeah.
like a like
They don't use
once
them.
a
They don't use
child
them. They're just
turns,
They haven't
like,
been encased in a
5.
sweaty sock yet.
Yeah,
They don't even.
Once
They're
a
not
child
even
turns
flat on the
5, they're-
bottom. They're
yeah.
like rounded because they don't
I
even
know
step
they're
on them.
rounded outward. They're
Was
like
convex? Is that what that is?
Yeah. Oh.
Wait,
Sorry.
Lauren.
Yeah, baby
Lauren, my wife. Update. Beep 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 beep. Ship in a bottle. It's her favorite episode.
Oh, you referenced that one on our thing. I have a star by it, but I never watched it.
I
We
did.
watched
I
it.
did rewatch it.
Wait,
It's
hold
good.
on.
It's one of my favorites.
Hold on. Now I have to look
wait.
at my recap of Ship in a Bottle to remember what that is. Oh, Moriarty. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Not my favorite.
Oh, the Borg ship, though, does look like it was made by the same guys who do Mystery Science Theater. It had that
Yes.
same, like, homemade vibe of, like,
There's a
this
toilet
is
seat. What's a
fine.
toilet seat doing on the
Right?
outside?
Yep. You're
It's
right.
a hungry
you're right.
hippos.
I think I might need more Borg information if you can lay
Ooh.
some Borg stuff on me. Because they are sort of, I mean, maybe they're not as big as the Klingons were in the original Recipe, but they are sort of, I knew of the Borg enough outside of
there's-
Star
I'm
Trek.
familiar with their work.
Yeah, DJ,
Maybe-
you want to explain
Yeah.
the Borg a little bit?
Well, I'm not an expert by any means, but I did watch because I watched Q Who. I feel like that context was helpful because Q, who you know from the next episode that we were
Unfortunately,
Who?
yes.
watching. Who?
I call him Qpid. I thought that was his name. I thought that was the play on words.
Q. So in the previous appearance of the Borg in Q Who, he casts the Enterprise to the far reaches of space where they encounter the Borg. So they were like, you're not ready for all that's out here, is kind of like his point. And he makes the Enterprise go like super far away, and then they encounter the Borg, and it's this whole dangerous thing, and some people die, and then they get away. Q eventually like brings them back, but now the Borg are aware of humanity's existence or the Starfleet's existence, and so that's why like the Borg are coming, and that's really ominous. Like even though that episode I think was a little bit, quite a bit sloppier than this one, and like it was, I think you made the right choice by like this being our introduction. That context was really cool and ominous before like how, basically undefeatable the Borg seem in that first episode, because they, unlike in this episode where they do eventually prevail, like in that episode they just get away, like and that's really interesting, is like they get away and they're like, but they're fucking coming, bitches. So sometime, somehow, someplace you're going to get Borged. Also, Lauren and I decided that we're going to pronounce it Bjorg. So
Like Bjork, kind of.
yeah. So I'm sorry that I've been messing it up this whole time.
Bjork,
They're all wearing swan dresses.
Yes.
resistance is futile.
How creepy would that be?
That would be
Bjork
even worse.
wrote a song about the Borg.
Oh, Army of Me. That might actually be the song.
Oh my God, you're right.
Captain, we're getting an audio signal. And it's just shh, shh.
Oh my God. So when I was a kid, the Borg, I had nightmares about the Borg. I was so
Was it their little pizza
scared.
cutters?
Was it their cat toy lasers in their eyeballs?
The spinning satellite on top of Picard's forehead.
Yeah.
They
No,
are like
was-
Hellraiser meets like something Calvin would draw.
Yeah. I think it's because like you can see that they're humanoids and
Right.
that they've lost their humanity. So like the thing that you find out that like you discover about the Borg over time is that they don't reproduce, they assimilate organic beings. So they take humanoid life forms and they put cybernetic implants in them and then they connect
they did
them
with
to their
Picard.
hive
Yeah,
mind.
they assimilate them. Yeah,
But that's the only way that they reproduce.
Although DJ, the episode you saw, I was thinking about this. Don't they actually have like the Borg nursery?
They have a Bjork
Oh, they
baby.
have the baby Bjorg.
But the baby Bjork, yeah. But
I feel like that's something they abandoned.
Yeah, I guess I assumed that they took those babies, but I didn't even. I don't know. I don't think they get
does
into
that mean
it.
there's little Bjork baby
Really?
babies?
Bjork
Like clothes?
No, Damon, they actually like
And
open
little
a
tiny pizza
drawer.
cutter?
They
Oh.
open a drawer and there's just like real babies there with like some little Borg
like,
things stuck
glued.
on them. But I feel like they kind of abandoned that after that episode. They were like, let's just forget about the Borg.
I don't want to think
until
about Bjork babies.
Voyager, until that one episode of Voyager though.
Borg babies.
We're doing it. So if the Klingons, like in the original show, are like the metaphor for communism, the only thing I could come up with for the Borg is that they are actually just a meta reference to us Earthlings in general,
Kind of like
of just like using up all of our resources and then just like the monoculture of just taking over, or maybe just a reference to America in general.
I always saw them as the loss of just like identity, like our fear of that.
Right, that was the other interpretation, like this sort of Gen X, like, no, man, I'm not going to be part of your machine, man.
Fuck you, I won't do what you tell me.
Skateboard or something.
Well,
yeah, I think it's that. Loss of identity, loss of humanity. I think it's also like you said, an example of like what happens when we stop like being kind to our planet and taking care of our resources the way we should, and because they're all consume, like they don't. That's it. They're all just like get more technology, get more knowledge, get more bodies, and there's no there's no end to that. That's their whole existence is just consumption.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And there was sorry, DJ,
no,
go ahead.
Fine. Well, I was just gonna say you touched on the loss of individuality of like the of having a spirit of your own as opposed to just being part of something, that like everything has to be the same.
Yeah. It's fucking scary.
They are kind of scary.
So scary. Just the thought of, because like the Borg come back a lot. There is actually there's an ex-Borg character on Voyager. There's a lot more Borg. There's more Borg in the movies.
Right.
There's just lots of Borg. But like just like continuing to see like watching someone become assimilated, like the way that they show it in some of these episodes, just like seeing. That's why this episode is so, I think, scary and awesome, is because like we know Picard really well by this point. We love him, and then like here he is, a Borg. And it's like, what the fuck? Oh no, my God, that's my friend.
And they're also terrifying because they were kind of partially inspired by nature, like bees. They talk about like the hive mind and zombies. It was kind of like their answer to space zombies, where since they work together, and it's not like the Klingons where it's like, well, if we take out this one general, then we can, take out the whole fleet. It really is sort of, what do you do when you have this just enemy that's kind of faceless in a way?
I thought this was the movie. I mean, this is the episode where I was wondering how much is affected by the fact that I am watching a show that it was filmed in standard definition, watching it on a high definition television. I'm sure some of it like looks really cheesy, but there were some moments where when in that first scene, when they go down to that planet that's been destroyed, or that town that's been destroyed, you can tell that it's kind of a matte painting. And I was like, I wonder if I would notice that was a matte painting on just on my 27-inch screen back in 1991.
Right.
So I was always curious about that, because even when they're on that Edo planet, there's like a painting of palm trees behind Worf at some point. It reminded me of the Golden Girls when they're out on the lanai that I had noticed, especially now when I'm watching it on HD TV. I'm like, oh, that's a fucking backdrop of palm trees. What an idiot I was.
Yep.
But I wonder if that's just watching it now.
Well, I also feel like it was a little undercut also by just the action. Because they still we're better. We're a little better now, but we're still like, anytime there's like one-on-one action, and it's like I put in my exactly. I even put in my notes. It's like the music's telling me there's action, but they're like walking slowly towards something, and it's like, and it was like, I think you might have hit that cue a little early.
Yeah, because they've got those tube arms, and they sort of like swing them in slow motion. They're like scared, probably because they're scared like a bunch of pieces are going to fall off. Right. But they're like, it's
the
not
Borg
the
are
best
definitely slow zombies.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
They're not 28 days later.
Which can be extremely effective, and like the what was that, T-1000 and the T2, like it doesn't, that can be really scary. It's just like the execution of that, just to be honest, was a little undercutting, because it was just like I was into it, and then it took me out of it a couple times, and I'm like, I'm still watching this.
I'm gonna say TNG is not known for its action sequences.
Right. Yeah. Nor should they be.
Yeah.
But they're still doing them, so that's on them a little.
Like it's more like lock phasers, fire on my command, fire.
I'm going to tell you what I'm about to say, then I'm going to say what I'm going to say, and then you're going to do what I said.
Yeah, right. Okay, so we decided this episode is too long for public consumption, so we're going to split it in twain. So this episode shall be continued. So I'm going to sing the TNG theme song while Damon tells you dramatically that this episode will be to be continued, okay?
To be continued.
Find us in the collective at intothewormhole.show, on Instagram at intothewormhole.podcast. Into the Wormhole is brought to you by We Own This Town.